P&P is back, temporary resident caps are in, and everyone's asking, when will express entry scores drop? In this episode, I'm going to break down Canada's new immigration levels plan, what happened, why it matters, what we can expect in 2026, and the million-dollar question, are we going to see express entry scores drop? Hi, I'm Brooke, founder of Navio. Navio delivers Canadian immigration advice and strategy without the law firm price tag. So what just happened and how does it impact immigration to Canada? Ottawa just announced the new immigration levels plan, which sets the targets and the priorities for Canada's immigration programs for the next 3 years, from 2026 to 2028. And here's what we saw. Total permanent resident levels are staying steady around 380,000, which is down significantly from the previous robust targets of 500,000 that we saw in 2023 and 2024. However, put into context, 380,000 is still higher than the target set in 2019, 2020. However, one of the differences is the share of immigration quota that is allocated to economic immigration in this year's immigration levels plan has increased slightly to 64% of the total immigration targets year over year. And that's an increase of 6% over previous targets. So that includes express entry applicants, business immigration, and provincial nominees, as well as economic immigration pilots. Ottawa announced that we can expect a one-time pilot for H-1B holders from the USA. And for reference, we've previously had one, and the target for that one-time program was 10,000. So we're looking at a small allocation for H-1B holders. 3 of the most notable changes or announcements, in my opinion, are related to the P&P, a one-time fast track for in-Canada applicants, and temporary resident levels. So let's dig into those a little bit deeper. The P&P immigration target was increased to just over 90,000. Earlier in 2025, it was reduced down to 55,000, and we all felt the squeeze. Provinces weren't able to nominate as many candidates. In fact, British Columbia, for example, largely did not invite or accept any new applications except from entrepreneurs and health professionals because they already had a large enough backlog from 2024 applications to exceed the limited quota that they had for 2025. So that increase, it's almost double and gets us a lot closer to the levels that we saw in 2024 and previous years. And this gives us hope that we'll see opportunities arise for more people who are already in Canada, contributing to the economy, filling labor and skills gaps, and adding to our society. So typically, the provincial nominee programs are open to people who have Canadian experience, have a job offer. The programs are largely employer driven to fill gaps within the provinces and help provinces advance their economic priorities. So that's huge news, especially for people who are in the express entry pool without a high likelihood of getting an invitation to apply. It's also super beneficial for people who don't align with an express entry program, who are waiting for those niche programs within a provincial nominee program to open back up. For example, the entry-level and semi-skilled worker stream of the British Columbia provincial nominee program. So very good news on the provincial nominee front. Additionally, Ottawa announced a one-time fast track for temporary residents in Canada. What we might expect to see is a pilot or program like we did during the pandemic, the TR to PR program. So for those who want to keep their options open and be ready for this opportunity, make sure you have a language test completed and an education credential assessment obtained. What happened last time with the TR to PR is when it was announced, all of the language testing centers got booked up and people missed out because they didn't have a valid test. So if you are in Canada with work experience, make sure you start the process, if you haven't already, to obtain those 2 documents so that when IRCC announces this one-time fast track, which, by the way, will be available to up to 33,000 people, you're ready. And finally, we see temporary resident caps again, not unexpected, although the level is 43% than it was last year. But it's important to note that these targets only include net new temporary residents. It doesn't include extensions of study or work permits for those already in Canada. So if you're in Canada facing an expiry, it's beneficial to submit an extension from within Canada, of course, on genuine grounds, in order to have the best chance of getting an extension of your temporary status while waiting for an opportunity to apply for permanent residence. Overall, the message that IRCC appears to be sending is that we're slowing down the entry of new temporary residents to allow for a rebalancing of the temporary resident population and to bring the pace of population growth into a sustainable cadence. Translation: fewer newcomers entering the system and more focus on those already in it. And that's the mechanism that's going to ease express entry scores. And if we look more holistically at the entire budget, we see that billions of dollars are allocated to infrastructure and major project approvals. There are incentives for clean tech and industrial investment, and there's emphasis placed on H-1B holders and other high-skilled talent. So if we follow the money, we can anticipate how we're going to see express entry draws unfold in 2026. I anticipate we will see more trades draws. I hope we do, as well as STEM, healthcare, and hopefully a new functional entrepreneur program to boost innovation and help address Canada's productivity crisis. Ultimately, every dollar in the budget points to category-based selection as the filter that IRCC is going to use from 2026 to 2028 to decide who gets to apply for permanent residence. So how is this going to impact CRS scores? Let's take a look. Lowering the immigration levels isn't alone responsible for the sky-high CRS points. In fact, the significant increase in the non-permanent resident population has resulted in an abundance of highly qualified and high-ranking candidates in the express entry pool. For context, in 2022, the non-permanent resident population in Canada was 1.5 million. By mid-2024, it was 3 million. And that surge filled the top of the pool. We're talking people with scores between 5 and 600. And this year's budget is clear. By limiting temporary resident volumes while keeping PR steady, IRCC is saying we're focused on candidates already in Canada and occupations that feed our budget priorities. Here's what I think we'll see in 2026. The non-permanent resident population will plateau around 3 million as IRCC caps the number of new temporary residents, including workers and students. We'll continue to see CEC, category-based, and work permit holders in Canada stay at the core of the PR intake, with CEC, provincial nominee, and category-based selection continuing to dominate invitations to apply. I think in the near term, we'll see scores stay high until there's an attrition of candidates out of the pool. As inflow slows, CEC scores begin to decrease. And if the number of invitations issued remains around 9,000 a month, I think by 2027, we'll start to see those CRS cutoffs drop into the high 400s. So what should you do? If you're in Canada, as I mentioned at the beginning, get an education credential assessment and take your language test, both if possible. Aim to hit CLB 10 in your first language and retake the test if possible. Add French. It is by far the most advantageous move you can make to increase your CRS score and your chances of getting invited to apply. Continue gaining skilled work experience in Canada. The data shows that the number of candidates invited to apply from express entry that had between 2 and 3 years of skilled work in Canada is on the rise. And run a P&P plan in parallel. Be ready to apply, submit your profile, and be in the wings waiting for those programs to open back up. If you're outside Canada, align with the category-based selection. French, STEM, healthcare, education, trades, because pure federal skilled worker draws are unlikely to take place. And if your employer, seek out strategies to help your employees on temporary work permits extend their stay while pursuing PR, and look to align with provincial nominee programs to retain those key staff. The bottom line is Canada isn't shutting the door, it's rebalancing. PR targets are balanced, and temporary entry is slower and more strategic. If you want to be ready to succeed, visit Navio HQ. It's your online portal for all things Canadian immigration, and it's absolutely free. Built by our experts, you'll find quizzes, templates, and guides, all to help you get set up for success. So click the link below and log in.